All right, so President Trump, he hit the road today to outline details of his tax plan and how it's going to impact you and your families. Let's take a look.
This is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, and I guess it's probably something I could say that I'm very good at. I've been waiting for this for a long time. We're going to cut taxes for the middle class, make the tax code simpler and more fair for everyday Americans, and we are going to bring back the jobs and wealth that have left our country, and most people thought left our country for good. We want tax reform that is pro-growth, pro-jobs, pro-worker, pro-family, and yes, tax reform that is pro-American.
Now, basically, the president, he's following through on what he promised you on the campaign trail. Now, here's what the president outlined today. He's going to consolidate the 7 current brackets to just 3 brackets with new rates, 12, 25, and 35%. He's going to double the standard deduction. And if you're single, well, you're not going to pay taxes on the first $12,000 you make. If you're married, that increases to $24,000. The child tax credit, that also will be expanded. And he will repeal the alternative minimum tax, and he will end the death tax, double taxation. Now, the corporate rate will be lowered to 20%, and he wants to create a 25% pass-through tax rate, which is going to help small business owners. And he's also calling for a very low repatriation tax, and that's a tax rate for multinational corporations that targets money directly that's parked overseas because of the high taxation and regulation here, and that allows these multinationals to bring trillions back to the American economy. So let me explain. The corporate side of tax reform is so very important, and here's why. When businesses face higher taxes, it gets passed on to you, the customers. Corporations don't pay taxes. Now, if President Trump's plan is approved, all these companies will have billions of dollars, if not more, of extra money. They're not going to put it in their bank account. Guess what they're going to do? They're going to invest capital in manufacturing centers and factories, which will create jobs for the millions of forgotten men and women in this country. That's what we need. That's what we want. That's what many of you voted for. And to add to that, the House Freedom Caucus, they are now supporting the president's plan. So basically, everything that the president is proposing is designed to help grow the economy. And the only thing I would add to the plan personally, give a tax cut across the board. Let everybody have it. And in many ways, it's a lot like what President Reagan did in the 1980s. Now, President Reagan, he created the blueprint for economic success. And it all adds up. Here are the facts. Reagan, he slashed over the course of his presidency the top marginal rate from 70 to 28%. As a result, economic growth exploded. For example, in 1984, GDP growth, get this, hit 7.3%. Well, Barack Obama didn't reach 3% in a single year of his presidency. The only president in history not to do that. 20 million jobs were created under Reagan after the '82 recession. Revenues to the government doubled by cutting taxes. And America, it saw the longest period of peacetime economic growth in history to that point. And if Americans, if you want more proof that works, well, just take a look at what happened when John F. Kennedy, a Democrat, believe it or not, he cut the top marginal rate from 91% to 77%. Same thing. Millions of jobs created. GDP growth soared. But today, the left, predictably, all they want to do, despite all the tax cuts that the president's proposing for the middle class and corporations and small businesses, they do what they always do, right to the playbook. Let's play class warfare. Take a look.
Under this plan, the wealthiest Americans and wealthiest corporations make out like bandits, while middle-class Americans are left holding the bag.
What has been released today makes a total mockery out of the president's pledge that he wanted tax relief to be for the working class and it wouldn't be for the wealthy.
Is a swindle of the American people, selling the same blueprint the failed trickle-down Bush tax cuts for the rich did not create jobs and only increase the deficit.
Same boring talking points. And then you got the mainstream media, an extension of the Democratic Party. All they did was echo those talking points. Watch, listen to this.
As you look at this plan, are those cuts imbalanced, favoring the wealthy over the working class?
The president says this plan will provide little benefit for people of wealth like himself. Is that true? In a word, no. The majority of this tax plan, the benefits are going to go to the wealthy.
If he's worth, as he says, $10 billion and he doesn't have to pay any tax on his estate, that would be an enormous bonanza for him and other very wealthy people, right?
Absolutely. You can cut taxes on people who are lower income, but it's peanuts in their wallet compared to the windfall that would be for the wealthy. They're not even mentioning some of the easiest stuff that benefits the wealthy and that is considered by everyone to be essentially unfair, that people like hedge fund managers and very wealthy investment professionals pay such a low tax rate.
Good point, Heidi.
They're just wrong. They don't know what they're talking about. Now, the Trump-hating Washington Post, perfect example. They attack the president's tax plan. Look at the headline, what it says. GOP proposes deep tax cuts, but provides few details on how to pay for them. Now, this is what the liberal press and people on the left will never, ever understand in spite of Reagan and Kennedy's success. The idea, it's not a zero-sum game. You want to grow the economy. And if you do that, well, those people out of work and in poverty and on food stamps, they'll have jobs and stop taking handouts, and they'll start paying taxes. In other words, you incentivize people to work and pay taxes. You create an environment that's growth-oriented for everybody. Democrats, the media, they just play class warfare. They've been doing it for decades. Now, you got to remember this. Democrats and the mainstream left establishment media, they're not telling you that under President Obama, they'll never tell you this, 13 million more Americans were on food stamps. 8 million more Americans were put in poverty. 95 million Americans were out of the labor force. Lowest labor participation rate since the 70s and the worst economic recovery since the 40s. Lowest home ownership rate in 51 years. And by the way, President Obama accumulated more debt than every other president before him combined. Great job, President Obama. Now, they also don't want you to know that here's the facts. The rich that they hate so much, the top 1% of wage earners in America, according to the IRS, they pay 39.5% of all federal income taxes. Top 10% wage earners, they pay 70.9% of personal income taxes. So it sounds like the rich are paying their fair share to me. Now, the bottom 50% of wage earners, they pay 2.8% combined. And we can't forget, 35% of tax filers pay nothing. Zero federal income tax. And under President Trump's plan, they'll even pay less. So my advice to the GOP is very simple. Stay the course, follow the Reagan, the Kennedy models, and stick to the plan that the president is proposing.